Okay, welcome everyone to our July EMEA office hours. We have three of our Adobe champs, that including me. Uh, I could introduce myself and then go around the room. We have a small group, but I'll just say that if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and we can talk them over. And if you do you want to add more, you can also put that in the chat and we can get you off mute and you can discuss with us. That's an option because it's great when you have a smaller group. Okay, but a little bit about myself. I've been working on Adobe Analytics for the past, I would say, I'm touching around 10 years. So, and I've started as just a reporting analyst, and now I focus on the admin architecture and also the co-product owner for Adobe Analytics within my firm. Um, my job essentially is to ensure that more and more of our geographies, adopt to Adobe Analytics as a solution for tagging their sites, and work with them, consult with them on how to implement an Adobe Analytics solution. And furthermore, from there, if they need additional support on understanding the tool, the theory of it, as well as designating it to their group, that would be my job. So a little bit about me and what I do. Mandy or Julian?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Mandy. I'm an Adobe Analytics Champion for the second year. I'm also a user group leader and a community advisor on Experience League. I'm currently working as a senior analyst at Staples Canada. So I'm located in St. John's, Newfoundland. And yeah, I'm the primary analyst for our B2B website. I've been doing analytics for about 5 years now. Um, yeah, I'll pass it off to Judoline.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Deb, for your introduction. So yeah, welcome everyone to our office hours. We really look forward to help answer your questions today. So I'm Judeline Berg. I work for DHL as a Digital Analytics Manager. I've been using Adobe Analytics and its predecessor, Adobe Insights or Adobe Data Workbench, probably for the last 9 years now. I'm primarily focusing on data visualization, data storytelling, but also analysis workspace, and really enabling and empowering users to be able to use the tool itself and get a lot of value from all the different features within Adobe Analytics and all the different and amazing features that it has available to offer. So yeah, I really look forward to help answer some of your questions.
Great. We have a few more folks trickling in, but we can get started with our first question. So we have a pretty light agenda. We are going to cover a few questions, and Mandy and Julian will walk you through how to set up some of this, and from there we can take it forward. If you have questions, put them in the chat that we can cover, and if we don't have all the answers, we can get back to you and follow up. The other thing is we've added a few questions in case the group doesn't have any, and we can cover them if we have more time. But let's get going. Our first question for today was how to understand the top metrics against segments report in the segment comparison panel. And we can take a look at that. Julian, do you want to take a first stab?
Thank you. Thanks for expanding that. Yeah, so definitely, I don't know if anyone has ever used the segment comparison tool, but it's actually very, very powerful, particularly if you have different segments that you want to compare against each other to understand if there's any differences in those segments and potentially where they might be overlapping as well. Or even if you wanted to compare a segment to everyone else to see how your segment is different from everyone else. So it's a really, really powerful tool. And what it does is it looks to see if there's any significant difference between certain elements like your dimensions on your segments and your metrics for those segments compared to each other. So as this example, we've got two segments. The one is a desktop visitors and the other one is a mobile device visitors. As you'll see, there's no segment overlap really, because within Adobe Analytics, these would be actually considered two different visitors because they come from different devices. So there's no overlap in this case. But the question that we had was particularly relating to understanding the differences in the metrics between these. So underneath the segment comparison panel, you'll see like it shows you a variety of different visualizations, and one of the visualizations it shows is a freeform table, and within that freeform table it looks at the top metrics against the segments. So you'll see as an example, we have the podcast impressions per visitors. So it works out the ratio of the number of podcast visitors per podcast impressions per visitors, and you'll see for desktop that was 0.79, but for visits from mobile, that was 0.34. And then on the right-hand side, the column shows the difference score. So the difference score works like this. The closer it is to 1, it's most significant, the difference between those two items. If it's closer to 0, there's no significant difference. So a difference score of 0.69, which is the closest and the highest one up there, is that metric is the one where it's most different. So in this instance, we have more podcast impressions for desktop users that per visitor that we have for visits from mobile. I don't know, Mandy or Deb, if you want to do anything else to explain this further, but also on the right-hand side, I'll just quickly mention you can also trend these. So if you wanted to then have a look to see if there's any difference in that segment over time, you can then see if there is a difference for that metric for each of those segments, and you can compare them as well.
Yeah, I was recently using this, and one way of looking at it overall, because the question also asks us like what can we do with this top metrics against segments, right? Because these are not metrics that you are putting together. It is what Adobe looks at, all the different hundreds of data points that you are putting together or have in your database, and essentially what they're saying is let me show you what's the different score, highest of them. Okay, so they put these metrics together based on statistical differences, and what is interesting is they come up with metrics which you would not have thought of putting together. So many of them may or may not be relevant to you, but most likely you'll see at least 1 to 3 of them um, that you've never used but have a great story to tell. So it's always a good idea to go down this list in the freeform table and see what makes for a good insight, right? You can always add to this list and look at what you want and then curate this list and make it your own. But this is to suggest some insights which you would not have thought of putting together. So that's something that I enjoy about looking at the top metrics against segments. And at some point, they have become like secondary KPIs over time, because they tend to provide that insight that helps you tell a better story. So yeah, top metrics does that for you. Additionally, when you look at segment comparison, it's interesting to see. And when you build this out, I believe if you let me pull it up one second. If you build this out, I'm not going to actually build one because it takes a quick minute to do that. Where did we go? Yeah. So when you add the segment comparison, there is this. What did I click? Sorry. Um, mm, mm. Come on. My trackpad has been giving me trouble. Hopefully it works. Okay. So let's say I'm just taking a segment page does not equal or visitors who visit more. I just add this one over here. Not going to do anything with it. But it's interesting when you compare this against everyone else versus all visits. You have a couple of options over here, and I would recommend looking at the options. Again, it depends on what's your case study that you're working with, or use case. You can use everyone else or all visits, and you would see a really different picture. So I would recommend start out with everyone else, and then also take a look at all visits, but of course you have your own use cases. But it's interesting when you do a segment comparison to try out these different options over here. Another thing that I found interesting was the desktop versus the mobile. When you do that, especially when you're doing a use case that belongs to a user experience that you're trying to analyze or something, the story that a desktop versus mobile gives you is drastically different, and helps you get to new areas or data points that you have not explored before. So yeah. Mandy, anything else that you would add?
No, I think the two of you covered all the main points on that one.
Okay. Uh, yeah. So that was about top metrics and segment comparison panel. With that, we move over to our next question. Where were we? Previous page, I believe the pathing question. Okay, so we had a question on pathing, or give us a few best practices on previous and next pages. I believe Julian, you had a few examples in here. Maybe walk through that. Could you help me
Yeah,
with?
so I mean, in the old reports that we had available in Adobe Analytics, there was actually a lot of pathing functionality, but one of the key features that they brought in, because that's been decommissioned at the end of December, we now have the next and previous item that you could use. So there's, I guess, two ways that I have look at things where normally I need to look at the next or the previous. So you could probably use this next or previous item, which is a new panel that you can bring up. And how this works is you need to drag any segments that you want or any filters that you want to apply to the top of the panel. You can change your date range as you normally do. And then where it asks for the dimension, you can then select what kind of dimension you want to look at. So as an example, I've selected page, but you could use any dimension that makes sense to you. And then you can choose your dimension item on the right-hand side. So this will be basically what you want to put in the center point of your next or previous item. So what's that key item you want to select? So as an example, I want to look at the home page. So I selected home. And then what you need to do is you need to decide which direction you want to look at. So do you want to understand things that happen next, so after the home page, or previous, that what pages are in this example are viewed before? Then you would take previous or next, depending on the direction that you're interested in to analyze. And then you can choose what container level you want this to be. Should this be at a visit level or at a visitor level? I mean, for most of the analysis I do, I tend to look, from a page, I want to see which pages were seen before, after. So I would probably use a visit, but it might be that you want to do an analysis more at a customer or a visitor level. So then you would actually take the visitor container, and then you can select bold. I don't know if we can try and quickly do it, Deb, if you can just please show an example of when you select bold, what happens. Thank you. Hopefully it won't take too long. So then it brings up really quickly for you like a variety of things. So you have a horizontal bar, so you can actually see, like in this example, I've selected previous. So I want to see what are the pages that are viewed prior to the home page. So this is directly before the home page because I've selected the visit container. And then if you scroll a little bit further down, it shows you a freeform table actually with all the pages that are viewed before the home page. This is really quite helpful if you want to see, like as an example, like which ones are those key steps that are an example, like purchase step 1 is the one that's most viewed before the home page, also forums, and then articles. Something else you could do as well, if you want to understand the previous and the next items, is you could use the flow diagrams. If you scroll down just a little bit again, please, Deb, thank you for your help.
No problem.
Yeah, I think maybe if we expand that one, I think that might be it. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Oh yeah, there's a little, if you just expand the flow, please. Thank you. So I've set up a flow diagram very similar to this, where I've set it up for a visit. And I will show you now. In the middle, I actually had my home page, and you should then be able to see exactly the same numbers and steps that I've just previously shown you. So you can see purchase step 1 in the flow diagram. So everything on the left of the flow diagram is what happened before the home page, and everything on the right hand side is what happened after. So these are all the occurrences before and after. So in this case, which pages were viewed before and after the home page. You'll see like the ones that were viewed directly before were the same ones as you've seen in the table above. But then the nice thing with the flow diagram is you can click on the little plus icon on the left-hand side and you can expand that even further so you can see but what happened before that and what happened before that, which is really, really nice. So you can really start to understand the whole customer journey of what's driving people to your homepage, where they're coming from, and the additional context you get from the flow diagram. It also shows you little green bars and red bars on your center page, and this shows the number of entries that you have and also exits as well. So you can not just see pages that people were seeing beforehand, but you could also see how many people actually enter onto the homepage, being that's the first page in their session, or how many people drop off the website after they've seen your homepage. So that could potentially signify really high bounce rates or exit rates, or also potential friction points as well. So I think this is a really helpful kind of way to look at previous and next, but I will hand it over to Deb and Mandy because there's always more than one way to do things in Analysis Workspace. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, building off that for the flow diagram. Deb, can you drag in a new flow? Don't actually build it out, but just drag it in. So some of the other options with the flow diagram that I really like is being able to build stuff with the starts with and ends with. So instead of having your page of interest as the middle and seeing both sides, you can actually choose something where it starts. Can you drag something into the starts with? Um, so when you do it this way, it actually gives you two options.
Is this one you wanted, or should I pick up an
Yep.
actual?
Yeah, grab an actual page maybe. So there's two options when you're doing it this way. You can, yeah, and then show advanced settings. You can leave it just like this and it'll show you everybody that saw the homepage and then what they did afterwards. But there's that option there on the left to limit to first or last occurrence. So if you do this, then instead of showing you everybody that saw the homepage, it'll limit it to people that saw the homepage as the first page of their visit. So you'll see people that came into the site homepage and then where they went from there. So that's great to see if you know, you've got a page with like a high bounce rate. You can look at this and see the people that aren't bouncing, what are they doing, and then, you know, maybe figure out what's going on from there. And same thing with the ends with, it'll show you the last page, and if you limit it to last occurrence, it'll be the page that they exited on. Um, yeah, so those are a couple other things you can do with the flow that I think are really useful. Do you have anything to add on flow, Deb?
No. I mean, there are some filtering options which I generally enjoy that show up over here, which I usually tend to use a lot. If you have a few pages, like right now we chose only the homepage, but sometimes and what the homepage was, what was happening before and after the homepage. But when you work with different dimensions, like we do templates, uh, and we want to look at only a few templates and streamline this whole diagram itself, this is a good option to use the filter option over here, uh, to just look at a few of the pages and did they actually lead to the home page or any other page that you're looking at. So once you have your anchor point, and you can also filter this out to show fewer options and something which you're more interested in. So I it's hidden, but I really like this option that I usually use. And then if you want to start over, you've got this, and you can just edit that out. But what's also interesting is the percentages, and I think for older users of the tool, this part of the visual is something that they're very familiar with. At least I used to use it very often. The percentages immediately give you what's the kind of like an exit rate from the home page, which looks like at about 8.3% right now. um, so stuff like that, the hovers always add more value when you look at it. So keep exploring, I would say. uh, we and
I have one other point about
Mhm.
pathing, not about the flow
Yeah.
specifically, but before they added the next page, previous page panel, one of the ways that I used to try and find next page is by using the previous page dimension and breaking that down by page. We can't show it in this data set. It doesn't have previous page. This is just the demo data set, so it doesn't have everything that we would normally have in a report suite. Um, but typically you would use previous page by breaking down a regular page, and it would show you where people were before. But if you want to see next page, use your previous page as the main dimension and then break that down by page, and it'll show you where they went next. So it's also still something that I use if I just need it in like a small table. Um, yeah, so if you that's just another way that you can kind of go about the previous page or next page.
Yeah, I believe it's a plugin which you can use, like, and see it as a separate report over here. And one of the use cases for us with the previous page was that based on our tagging strategy, we used to use it with contact us. So contact us is one of our KPIs that we look at. So use the previous page and use the contact us button, because our contact us used to not fire on the same page as the button. So we used to always look at, okay, where did this person go last before contacting us. So that was one of the use cases for previous page for us. So yeah, that's just another simple report. We don't have to go through the whole flow to find that. So that's a good call out, Mandy. Okay, so that were two of the main questions that were submitted to us. Any questions in the chat, maybe? Do we have
Nothing in the
anything?
chat.
Okay. Um, I wanted to maybe cover a couple of other questions, and we could add to that if we have any new releases. We can pick that up. One was, so there was this question that came to me indirectly, and it was around, why do I see none as a channel in my marketing channel data? So when you create your marketing channel processing rules, it's important to, one, know, realize what the order of your processing rules have to be in, and two, if you've covered all different scenarios. So sometimes when there is a query parameter that has not been covered, or you've not accommodated for a particular scenario, none tends to show up in such cases. And the best way to do it would be to kind of go in there and relook at all your processing rules, the order of it, and also to see whether, all my query parameters are being accounted for. So that's one way to look at that. And if you also want to understand that traffic and where it's coming from, you can actually break it down and see what was the query parameters. Or if there's no query parameters, then you can look at when you've seen that bunch of traffic come through, and then try to relate that to any campaign that would have gone live and which went and is not being accommodated currently in your marketing channels. So that's one of the other reasons why you would see none. Adobe provides a list of tips and tricks. I think I can pop that link into the chat. I found that while looking for this answer. And then what you can do is, if none is not one of the problems that you're facing, but there are other marketing channels that you want to look at the data for, and you're not too happy about what you're seeing over there, check out this troubleshooting tips and tricks which Adobe provides, and you can take a look at that and see if any of those scenarios fit your question, and you have an answer there. Okay. I'll just move on to new releases then. We have a
Oh,
question here. Yeah,
yeah, I added one more
yeah,
question in before we get to new releases. Do you mind if I share screen for a
sure.
moment with this one?
Do I need to stop sharing?
Yeah, you need to stop for
Oh,
me to
okay.
start.
Mhm.
All right. So this one is a question that I get quite a lot. Um, People build a segment trying to exclude a particular page, but it still shows up in their table. So I've got a couple examples. So here we have a segment that I've built where page doesn't equal the home page at a hit level. We can see that this does work quite well. It brings in every page except for the home. So if I search for home here, it won't show me anything. Mobile web is a different page than the regular home. Um, so this works well to exclude the page that we don't want to see. But if we want to see this at a visit level, so we want visits that didn't see the homepage. Maybe we're trying to see how people get into the site other ways and what they're doing, but we don't want to see homepage. So if we do this at a visit level, we'll notice that the homepage still shows up. And this is an interesting point about the logic in segments. Um, so the condition that you have in there, Adobe is looking for it to meet that condition within the visit because we have a visit level segment. And then what it does, if it finds that meets your conditions, it returns everything in the level that you've chosen, whether that's hit, visit, or visitor. So in our visit, if we have somebody that enters on the home page, does a search, and then goes to a product page, this Adobe's going to look at this visit and they'll see the search results page and say, oh, this isn't a home page, so let's include this visit. So that's why we still get homepage when this happens at a visit, and it would do the same thing at a visitor level. What we can do instead is build an exclusion segment. So instead of page doesn't equal home, we're going to set it to page does equal home, and then we're going to exclude it at the top level. So whether this is a visit or a visitor, you would exclude. So the way that you do that, if you've never had to before, you set, equals here, and then under options, you can either include or exclude. And so what this does is it now says if we have a page that equals home, we're going to exclude the entire visit. And so when we do that, we now get a table with no homepage. So if we do equals, we can see that this gives us exactly what we're looking for, visits without the homepage. Um, Yeah, so if you're trying to exclude visits based on a criteria, just remember it'll exclude everything in the visit. So our overall visit count drops by about a third. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're trying to build segments and about how the logic works in different types of segments. I don't know if either of you have anything to add to that one.
Yeah, I'm actually quite amazed with the way you've explained this because it's such a it's a very complicated concept, but it's very simple the way you've put it. Because for us, we tend to use this logic, the exclude container logic in virtual report suites. So
Mm,
when we build out country report suites, we need to exclude all other countries that come to the site. And this is a very easy explanation, which I'm going to rob this idea and show it because we have such a big problem trying to explain to some of our marketers why we have an exclude segment in a virtual report suite, which excludes actually some of which the condition written is so confusing for them. But I'm going to use this and probably explain it to them, and hopefully they get it. But yeah, I like the way you've explained it, Mandy.
Yeah, it's a really common question that I've seen on Experience League and my organization all over the place. Segment logic can get very tricky, especially when you start nesting segments
Oh man.
and doing other fun stuff. Like back at Summit, I did a talk on visit and hit segments, which is a really funky way of how the logic of segments work. So there's a lot of nuances to segment building.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
I'll pass the screen share back over to you.
Let me see. Okay, and these are just quick releases which are fun, which I found on our new releases page. I'll pop that link in there. But if there are CGA users, there's a lot that has happened in the past few months. I'm not a CGA expert, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to pull up some quick workspace updates which are fun and which I really like. The first one is the table of contents. So I know we go in here all the time, but I don't know if many of us have noticed this table of contents over here on
Yeah,
the left
I,
side panel.
I don't know if you're trying to share your screen, but we're
Oh,
not seeing your
oh wow!
screen.
Thanks, Mandy. I make
No
that
worries.
mistake all the time. Okay, let's see.
There we go.
Okay, great. So here on the left hand side, you will see the table of contents. This is a new release from Adobe where you can, like, say, for example, this workspace. It's kind of like really long, right? And you want to get to different places within the workspace or with the right naming and the putting it in the right order. The table of contents can be really powerful in getting to different data points or different modules within your workspace project. So it's built in as a hierarchy and they all nested inside each other. So say for example the first panels over here, and within the panel what different um, sections or reportlets, old word, but reportlets are available. You click to that and it takes you to that particular section of the workspace. So it's quite helpful in that sense when you're working live within the tool, as well as if you're sending over a project to other team members. And if you're also presenting and you want to use this as a table of contents, you just collapse all of it and then you start like, okay, this is what we're going to cover today, blah blah blah, and have them as questions. And it's fun way to kind of get started within workspace. So there is also a visualization called as the section header over here, and I like that. If you just add it into your workspace, it works pretty much like in PowerPoint how you have a section title. You can use that, and then when you come back into table of contents, it's available over there and you can directly go into that particular section. So it's creating anchors for you which you can add titles to, and then you can go crazy. I find these kind of updates pretty interesting, especially when working with marketeers. You don't need to build out a whole deck. You can bring them over to here and bring them to different sections. Use this as your presentation model. I'm kind of a bit tired of using just PowerPoint, so this works for me. That was table of contents. And then what else did Adobe come up with? Let me go in here. Yeah.
The new options for multi-select for the drop
Oh,
downs is a
yes, I
really good
love
one.
this. So, this option is, I don't know how many of us have been using this option, but you can now select multiple drop downs within the multi filter over here, now that it's called multi select filter. And you can see them show up over here, the number of items that you have selected, and you can reset it from here. You see a blue tick over here, so you know that this is what has been selected, and then you can either remove them, xing them out from here, resetting them. and play around with this a bit. So I found that interesting because sometimes we work with like 10, 15 geos, but they all belong to a particular region. So what we do is we can now select all that belong to a particular region within the same drop down of countries and show them their numbers. So that's, I believe, a good addition. I would also think, let me see, yeah, I think this was there before, but I think first time I'm exploring it. But when you start typing out, you are left with the options that closely fit to that. So that is multi-select. I don't
Um,
know. Yeah.
can I add a couple points
Oh
to that
yes,
one?
please.
So, a couple of the sort of nuances with this, when you can you select podcast as well? So you've got multiple options there. If we had a table, actually, can we just build a table just like page views and pages or something very basic?
Mm-mm.
Um, in the same panel
Oh,
as
let me
the
look for it.
filter. Yeah.
I hope this one
Um,
will. Oh
you
wait.
have to,
Oh, yeah,
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 just add a table first.
yeah. It's my morning brain.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Um, so let's go back to our filter for a moment. So expand that. Let's deselect email. So if you watch the numbers in the table as we deselect, it updates it. Select like 2 or 3 more options. So every time we select something, it's going to reload the data in our table. Um, so this is something to just keep in mind. If your table is like if your panel has a lot of visualizations, a lot of really big tables, it's going to take time to load it every time you select an option. So it might set up your filters before you add all your data if that's an option for you. And also something to let your users know, hey, when you select options, you're going to have to give the table a moment to reload after each click. The other thing is when you go to remove an option, the ways you want to do it are either what Deb has been doing, deselecting in the actual item, or hitting the X beside it in the top search bar. So not that X, the one right there. So if you click that one, so it takes the check mark away. If you, for example, were to click the other X, so let's hit the X beside podcast. So this one here, it does take it away from the filter, but it also takes it away from your list. Um, I'm not sure if reset all brings it back. Can you click reset all? I
It
actually haven't
removes
tried that.
all the options.
Yeah, so then hit the drop down.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it did not bring back podcast. So that's one thing that the reset all won't fix is if you delete something from that drop down list, it's gone as an option. So what you would have to do to fix that is basically bring the dimension in again and make a new filter if you accidentally delete something from the list, because I don't believe there's any way to get it back. So you just want to be careful when you're selecting and deselecting items with the multi-select. And another thing, it still works with the, oh, I forget what they call it, where you have one segment and you filter it and then it filters out your other segment as well. Um, do we have marketing channel detail in this report suite?
Okay, okay. Oh, oh
Oh
man.
yeah, the third
I,
one. I think it's
hmm.
yeah. So if we
You want me to
can
just pull
drop
that?
that in, yeah, as another no, as another segment at the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hit shift, make a drop down.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, hit
Yeah,
shift,
my
make it a
shift
drop
is not
down.
working right now. Give me a second, huh?
Okay.
Uh, I've been struggling with this. Give me a second. I hope this works. No, it isn't.
Okay, do you want me to
Yeah,
share again?
yeah,
Okay,
because my shift's not working very well.
no worries. So if you stop sharing screen,
Oh, stop sharing.
perfect. All right. Oops. Okay. So marketing channel detail. So we can see here, all the different values in this dimension. Um, and it still works where when we limit based on this, it edits your table. It also impacts what items you're seeing in this list here. So if we have, email and podcasts selected, you can see there's the podcast IDs and the email IDs. Um, so the multi-select still works with filtering other segment dropdowns. So if you've got, like your marketing channel here, you could also do if like product hierarchies, like a department, class, subclass level, or even page hierarchies. Yeah, so that's just another little call out about this is you can still use it to sort of filter the other segments. And again, every time you click something, it's going to reload your table. So yeah, yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I'll pass it back over to you, Deb.
Awesome. I just have one more item. Maybe you just keep the screen up. I don't think. Yeah, it was about hyperlinks in freeform. Let me see. Yeah. Um. Okay. Maybe I do need to share my screen again. Mandy, can I share my screen?
Yeah. Oh, did I? Oh, sorry. I thought I stopped sharing.
Okay. Okay, so this one, and I don't know how many of you have always thought of it, but I've always wanted this option because we do a lot of working sessions, live working sessions, and with our UX teams especially. And when we find an insight that we really like, oh, we need to look at this more, but how does the page look like, right? So this is one of the reasons at least I think they would have put this in the new release is you are now able to click to the content that is showing up in a free form table. So the what you have over here is a page URL report, okay? And you would need a report that actually brings in your URLs. So in a freeform table, you are now able to click into it and then go to that actual page. So one way of doing it is you do it for the whole table, and you have the create hyperlinks for all dimension items. You can use this option over here, and they have two options when you talk about the first one. So you're going to use the URL or the dimension item as a URL. So and when they ask you that, of course you need a URL report, so you say create, and all of the links within the freeform table um, are hyperlinked, and then when you click on them, it will ask you whether it'll ask you that, okay, we're going to a different content piece, we're going out of Adobe's domain, are you okay with that? Say continue, and it opens up in a new window, and you can see that content piece. So this is helpful when you're working live or you're looking at data and you want to know, hey, what made this link so special or do so badly? Either way, you have that quick click option to work with. Then, if you don't want it, you can always just remove hyperlinks for all dimension items, and that should take that away. Say, for example, you want to just highlight one, then they've given you the row level option as well to create a hyperlink. Where did it go? Yeah, create hyperlink just for a row level item, and the same option works over here. You create it, and it will take you to that item piece, and you can. It also works like just to highlight it. It will also work in the same way if all the items in the freeform table had URLs. The second option that is available is within a row itself, you can not just take it to the URL that it is showing up, but you can also create a custom URL and send it to, say, let's say adobe.com, right? The homepage over there. And you don't necessarily need to send it to the same page. So, say for example, you're working on a campaign that has a bundle of URLs, but you want to take anyone who clicks on the link takes them to the campaign's landing page, the first page in the campaign. So then you can just add the campaign URL as a custom URL over here. So whatever they click, they always go back to the campaign homepage. So you've got this option as well. And then if you have further breakdowns, you can click to that and you have those options to play around with. So I found that as something useful for our live working sessions. You set it up, and then when you're presenting, you can just click to it, come back, and then continue talking about that particular page. Any use cases you guys would have for this? I don't know.
I think that's really useful, especially for a dashboard that's going out to, other teams. If they're able to click through and see what page, it actually is, what it actually looks like, that can help give a lot of context to um, the metrics that you've got against it.
I was going to second that definitely, because like we don't necessarily always use the URLs. We have like an aggregation of like all our different country language variations of our pages all under one page name. But then we can still have an example that we can link someone to. If they use the page dimension or the page name dimension, then we can put a hyperlink in so they can actually know, like, this is the page that I'm referring to when I say something like home, which is obvious, but there might be some other pages that are not so clear from the page name which page it actually refers to. So I think this is a very, very, very powerful feature. This is something I'm really excited about, and I'm really glad that we finally have this available. Thank you for sharing it, Deb.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something that's been, I know a lot of us have been asking for a while. I guess sort of one cautionary with using it though is because props and evars have character limits. If your URL is longer than that, and you use the create URL based on the value in the dimension, it'll have that cutoff. So it might not work properly. So if your URLs are long enough, like longer than 100 characters for props or 250 for evars, then you'll want to use the create custom hyperlink. So instead of having it use the value in the field, um, adding it manually.
Yeah. Yeah, that brings us to the end of what we wanted to talk about today. Uh, Again, do we have any questions that we need to cover?
I haven't seen any questions in the chat.
Okay.
I do have one other thing that we can call out. Just want to put in a plug for the skill exchange that is happening on August 7th. So I just dropped a link in the chat. Be sure to register for those sessions. There's going to be a lot of great talks there. You know, Judoline is speaking there as well as I am. So it's on August 7th in the 9 a.m. to 12 Pacific time. So I know for a lot of people in EMEA and APAC regions, that could be quite late. My recommendation is to register anyways, because the sessions will be recorded and available online afterwards. And that's actually my advice for any Adobe webinar. Anytime you see a communication that there's a webinar happening, register for it, even if you can't attend, because you'll be able to get the content on demand afterwards.
Yep. Okay. I just realized I have not signed in, so I thought I did. I just registered. Um, okay, we don't have any questions in the chat right now, and we've covered what we have. If there are any follow up questions, do let us know. Do join us next month as well for office hours and do submit questions. But for now, I think that is it. Thank you for joining in, and thank you, Mandy and Judeline, for answering all the questions and for your time.
Thank you. And if you have questions in between now and the next office hours, you can always post them on Experience League. The community advisors are always watching and answering questions. So it's a great place to get your questions answered in between the office hours.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Deb.